Welcome to Subscription Prescription, the podcast where you get the information you need to scale your subscription program. Hello and welcome to another dose of Subscription Prescription. I'm your host, Matthew Holman, and this is the podcast where we help you figure out everything related to D2C subscriptions. On this week's show, we're going to be talking about a dreaded thing that happens in subscriptions. It is the growth cap. It is the ceiling that you hit when subscriptions stall. If you've worked on a brand, or if you're working on a brand, you have probably seen this at some point, or maybe it's happening to you right now, and that's when it seems like your subscriptions are just flat. You're acquiring as many as you're losing, can't seem to figure things out. That's what we're going to be diving into today. This is inspired by an audit that I did earlier this week for a brand that was interested in getting some real help related to their churn prevention and retention. But looking into the program, I saw this problem and immediately started calling it out for them. So I want to start by kind of breaking down a couple of really key, important, fundamental concepts in subscriptions. I haven't talked about these in a little while, but it's really important to remember that a subscription program is based off of, I'd like to say, 3 pillars or a stool with 3 legs. So 3 pillars. The pillars are the number of subscribers that you have, the average order value of a subscriber, and the amount of times that they renew. Okay. So from a simple basis, if I have 10 subscribers that are paying me $10, I'm making $100 a month. If the average subscriber sticks around for 5 months, then that subscriber cohort group is worth $500. Okay. It's that simple, but at larger scale, these numbers start to actually really matter. So if we're looking at a program, say, that has 1,000 subscribers with an AOV of $50, right? So that's $50,000 a month in revenue. And the average subscriber sticks around for 5 months, that is $250,000 in lifetime value for that cohort. And so when we're looking at building subscription programs, we can really only impact those 3 pillars. So you can get more subscribers. That's the most common tactic. You can make a subscriber more profitable, make their AOV go higher. This is done with cross-sells, upsells, things like that. Or you can get people to stick around longer, right? So go from 5 months to 6 months as an average subscriber lifetime. Okay, so when we're thinking about subscriptions, though, and when people reach out to me for help, they're often thinking about that third leg. How do I get people to stay longer? Okay, and that is a really good place to start with subscriptions, and you should be looking at that. In fact, the overall strategy of how I like to explain subscriptions is actually a little bit back to front, meaning we look at how things are happening at the end, at the point of cancellation, what is causing people to leave, or maybe more accurately, why aren't people staying? And then we look at the front end of the program and how we can build that into it. So better offers, onboarding, things like that. Talk about that on a ton of past doses. But for the sake of this episode, we're talking about growth cap. So what happens with those 3 pillars? So let's take this example of 1,000 subscribers. And let's say on average each month, I bring in 150 new subscribers, okay? But I have 15% churn. So month over month, I churn 15% of my subscribers. So if I have 1,000 subscribers, I'm losing 150 a month. And I'm bringing in 150 a month. So I've hit an equilibrium point, or what I would call a ceiling. I've capped. I can no longer grow, and I'm treading water, and it's a really dangerous place to be because one little thing could change, and that 150 you're acquiring each month could go down to 50, and your group will start to shrink, or that 150 you're losing a month could go up to 200 or 250, and then you're accelerating your loss, right? So it's a really dangerous point. It's a tipping point, okay? And for a lot of larger brands, when you're seeing news in the space, when they're trying to grow or talking about hitting problems, it's because they've reached a massive size. Say they have 250,000 subscribers and they're acquiring 25,000 subscribers a month, right? Mind-blowing number. And they have 10% churn, which is pretty decent. They're at an equilibrium point. They are losing 25,000 subscribers a month at 10% churn. They're acquiring 25,000 subscribers a month. Equilibrium, capped growth. Now, if you are capped, one of the first simple things to look at is, are there some easy things that I could do to make my program more profitable? Do I have 2 SKUs and everybody's only buying 1? Can I do a better job of getting those cross-selling that second product into that cohort? Now that AOV pillar can increase, and so each subscriber now becomes more profitable and I make more money for the business. I can look at gifting strategies and other things to try to increase the amount of time someone's on a subscription. I can look at how I'm onboarding. I can look at cancel flow deflections. I can look at better billing reminders. Lots of those strategies. Again, tons of past doses you can go consume to get this kind of information to make that subscription stick longer, right? So that's the third pillar I talked about. But for smaller brands, so those strategies are must-dos when you're pretty big. If you're acquiring 25,000 subscribers a month, it's kind of hard to go from 25,000 to 50,000, right? That's a huge lift. But if you're acquiring 25 or 250 a month, getting to 50 or 500 is actually a lot easier than you think. And a lot of the impact related to churn prevention can actually be kind of tricky. And really great growth strategy can often actually solve some of those problems for you. And again, this ceiling actually comes in for, I see it really, really commonly with a lot of brands that actually have really strong retention or really low churn numbers. The brand that I was looking at had around 5 or 6% monthly churn, right? Which is phenomenal. And at the size of their program, that's still though a decent amount of people that are leaving each month. So and the reason I bring this up again is to say, if I have 10,000 subscribers and only 5% churn, I'm losing 500 subscribers a month, okay? Trying to get that 500 number down to say 300 or 250 is a lot of work, as opposed to going from acquiring 500 subscribers a month to 600, 700, 800, okay? So if you haven't consumed some of these doses in the past related to acquisition and offer strategy, I highly recommend going and listening to those, reading or watching those, because those go much more deeper into the tactics that I'm going to explain now. But the reason why the first pillar is the one to be focusing on, if you are under, say, even 20,000 subscriptions, this is the place that I would look at. But especially if you're under 10,000 subscriptions, you should definitely be thinking about how you're acquiring subscribers. You should be looking at, do you have a framework in place for testing offer strategies to acquire more subscribers? Are you testing your conversion rates? Are you looking at how you can get more people in? If you have traffic coming to your site, you can improve conversion rate overall for just general purchases, both one-time and subscriptions, or you can look at improving your subscription take rate, right? And so we can look at design options, how we show off the subscription option, but the most effective strategy will be looking at offers, right? Are we doing BOGOs? Are we doing gift with purchase? Are we doing bulk options? Are we doing more discounting? Those are a lot of different arrows you can have in your acquisition quiver, so to speak, to get more people in the door. But I can tell you there's so many growth strategists out there. There's so many great ad buyers. There's so many CRO agencies. It's actually not as tricky as you might think to stand up a really great offer testing framework where you're looking at improving that. That's the work that we do with all of our clients. A lot of brands recently we've taken from 20, 25% subscriber opt-in rates to 40, 50%, just off of some very simple updates made to the site. And that's essentially doubling the amount of subscribers you're acquiring. So if you're already at like a 60, 70% opt-in rate, then I would potentially look at some of those other pillars we talked about, looking at increasing AOV, looking at decreasing churn. Usually that's how I see it. It's like a lever. It's a trade-off. Brands that have low subscriber opt-in rate will have stronger retention because they're not necessarily cramming subscription offers down people's throats. People that are doing a little bit more of that, where you're having a much higher opt-in rate, will typically have, a lower retention number. So that maybe they're in the teens for subscriptions. And so it is a little bit of a seesaw. A brand I was just speaking with, a really large program doing tens of millions a month in subscription revenue. That was kind of the lesson that I gave to them, was trying to find a stronger balance between how aggressive you are on offers to find the sweet spot for LTV. So if I can take, I have like an 85% subscriber opt-in rate, but I have a really, really high month one churn. So I'm losing like 35% of subscribers in month one. If I drop that conversion rate from 85% to 75%, can I make that first month churn go from 35% to 25%? Because that kind of trade-off means that 10% delta in how you acquired means that they potentially will last a lot longer on the program and be more profitable. So that's how we should be thinking about subscriptions. We should be thinking about this trade-off between these three pillars, which ones we should work on. And if you've hit a ceiling in your growth where you are essentially losing as many as you're bringing in, and again, under 10,000, 15, I think this can still apply up to 20,000, but definitely if you're under 10,000 in subscribers or subscriptions, instead of worrying too much about how to get people to stay longer, go back to the drawing board on the offer strategy so that you can figure out how to get more people in, because you already have a good program in place on that back end because people are sticking around. And then you can go back and look at how you can continue to improve or optimize your back end engagement. Okay, that's it for this week's dose. If you have any questions about any of this or would like to talk more about subscriptions, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter or LinkedIn. But for now, this has been Subscription Prescription. Stay tuned to next week for another dose of subscription knowledge. That's it for today. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe so that you can get notified when new episodes come out each week on Tuesdays.